Hello all, a very good day. We are returning again. Today we'll be continuing with from where we left off. In the last class we discussed the most important parts of chapters 1 to 6 in your Spring's textbook. Today we'll be completing the remaining chapters, that is chapters 7 to 14. Okay, so yeah, continue. Yeah, moving on. Chapter 7, The Gardener. So P. Lankesh's short story, The Gardener, is a rich allegorical tale that explores the complexities of human nature, specifically how rivalry can become the sole purpose of a person's existence. The main theme, of this story is rivalry. Understood? How rivalry fuels people. And here there is a rivalry between Tamanna and Basavaya, so which is the main theme of the story as well. So the arrival of the old man. So the story begins with the narrator describing a veteran gardener who arrives at a coconut grove near Chennaraipatna. The plantation owner, who was previously struggling to manage the farm, hires the old man. So the plantation owner hires this old man knowing very well that he's experienced, which is why it is given veteran gardener. So he's experienced, which is why the old man was appointed. And the plantation owner, who was previously to manage the farm, hires the old man. Yeah, the gardener is incredibly hardworking and knowledgeable. Under his care, the petty thefts stop and the farm begins to flourish financially. However, this prosperity changes the owner's lifestyle. He becomes lazy, takes up vices. So what are vices? Bad habits. Okay, so what happens eventually? The old man, he takes charge of he starts managing the activities within the plantation. So the plantation owner has very less work. Okay, so very less work, but the finance also improves. So with more money and with less work, what eventually happens? He becomes lazy and he starts spending his money on bad habits. So those are vices. Okay. And his social prestige grows, leading to a strained relationship with his wife. So he starts spending money on gambling, on adultery, on drinking, so many bad habits. So his wife is now tensed. She's in a situation. Okay. So yeah, the tale of Tamanna and Basavaya. To explain the complexities of human behavior to the owner's worried wife, the gardener narrates a story. So what eventually happens? The owner's wife, she's now worried, with the present state of affairs, the present situation wherein the owner is most of the time, spending his money on a lavish lifestyle. He's being a spendthrift. He's spending it on bad habits, that too, and he has very less time for his family. So the wife is concerned and she approaches who else but the old man. So when she approaches the old man reads her mind and he tells her the story of Tamanna and Basavaya, the most important part of this lesson. So the tale of Tamanna and Basavaya. To explain the complexities of human behavior to the owner's worried wife, the gardener narrates a story, which is implied to be his own life story, about two men, Tamanna and Basavaya. So the two main characters in the story are Tamanna and Basavaya. The competition. So they were rivals in a small village. If Tamanna bought 4 acres of land, Basavaya would buy 10. So this tit for tat competition eventually escalated until Tamanna had 1,000 acres and Basavaya had 800. So almost all the property in the village was either owned by Tamanna or Basavaya. So they became very powerful landlords. The power move. Unable to buy more land, Basavaya forcibly took 200 acres of Tamanna's land. So this is where the story takes a shift, a twist, you can say. So Basavaya encroaches or forcibly takes Tamanna's land, 200 acres of Tamanna's land. So the shift in rivalry. So instead of going to court or using violence, Tamanna hit upon a unique idea. So all his friends suggest or tell Tamanna to go to the court, file a case, or take men and fight and get the land back. But Tamanna is creative, So what does Tamanna do? He hits upon a unique idea. What is a unique idea? He started composing and singing ballads. Ballads are these folk songs, village songs. So songs that are composed in the village, rural areas, and these ballads usually tell a story, a complete story. very simple songs to understand. So what happens? Tamanna starts composing ballads about Basavaya's cruelty and greed. So every ballad that he composes, Basavaya is the character, and Basavaya is portrayed as a villain. Okay, so people start listening. Okay, just like rumors, right? So people listen to these ballads, they sing to other people. So in a short period of time, these ballads become very famous. Okay, and it goes to other villages as well. So whose reputation is damaged now? Basavaya's reputation. So art as a weapon. Tamanna became famous as a poet. His reputation spread far and wide, while Basavaya was left humiliated. To compete with Tamanna's art, Basavaya tried to perform his own songs and decorate himself with gold and mansion. He builds a very big mansion also, a house. But he couldn't capture the soul of Tamanna's poetry. The paradox of the enemy. The rivalry reached a point where Tamanna realized his entire identity was tied to Basavaya. Okay, and people associated each other, okay, with their rivalry only. Tamanna, how was Tamanna known as? Tamanna was known as Basavaya's rival. Basavaya was also known as Tamanna's rival. They did not have their own identity. Okay, so the rivalry reached a point where Tamanna realized his entire identity was tied to Basavaya. He theorized that man needs an enemy to survive. To truly defeat Basavaya, Tamanna decided to annihilate his own identity. Annihilate as in destroy his own identity. So how would he try to do that? To leave the village, okay, and to leave the village, and thus he thought of destroying his own identity. Okay. He gave up everything, declared himself dead to the world, and walked away. Without Tamanna to compete against, Basavaya lost his reason for living and passed away shortly after. So this is what happens. Okay, Basavaya was not happy with the way Tamanna was destroying his reputation, humiliating him day in and day out. But the day Tamanna left the village, okay, the day he lied to the village that he died, and he left the village secretly, Basavaya fell ill, and Basavaya died. Like this time he died for real. Okay, why? Because Basavaya had no motivation to live. Okay, you see Tom and Jerry cartoons. Okay, Jerry's motivation is Tom, and Tom's motivation is Jerry. Similarly, there is always some sort of rivalry that motivates people. Here, Tamanna was Basavaya's motivation, and vice versa. Basavaya was Tamanna's motivation. So when Tamanna declared to the world that he was dead, Basavaya lost all motivation, and he fell ill. Okay, and he died. So the gardener reveals that he is actually Tamanna. So that is towards the end of the story, he says he is Tamanna. After Basavaya died, Tamanna forgot his songs and his pride, becoming a simple gardener. So all the ballads that he composed, the songs he composed, had Basavaya as a villain. So the day Basavaya died, Tamanna had no reason to compose these ballads. So he naturally forgot these ballads. That's what he says. Okay. He reflects on the fact that humans are complicated creatures. Yeah. Moving on, chapter 8, To the Foot from Its Child, the famous poem. Alright, here we have an image. Yeah, the foot and the environment that it has to deal with as it grows. Yeah, To the Foot from Its Child by Pablo Neruda, very famous poet, a very famous poem, is a philosophical and poignant poem that uses a child's foot as a metaphor for the journey of life, the loss of innocence and the eventual weariness of the human condition, the dream of flight, innocence. The poem begins with a child's foot that does not yet know it is a foot. It dreams of being an apple or a butterfly. At this stage, the child's imagination is limitless, and the foot is unaware of the constraints of gravity or the physical world. Constraints as in limitations. Constraints are limitations. Okay, so the foot is basically is a metaphor for the journey of life, or basically us human beings. Okay, so the foot here dreams of being a butterfly or an apple. Meaning the poet is trying to say that the foot has no limitation to it towards its imagination. Okay, the same way we human beings in the early stages of our life, when we are a child, our aspirations, our dreams know no limitations. Some of us dream to be artists. Some of us aspire to be astronauts. Some of us aspire to be Formula 1 Formula 1 race drivers. Some of us aspire to be Yeah, I mean, our ambitions know no limits. But as we grow up, okay, the harsh realities of life start hitting us. So in the same way, the food here also, now it has no limitation. It dreams of being an apple or a butterfly, okay? But only we know, only the third person, we know that the food cannot be an apple or a butterfly as it grows, okay? Yeah, the constraints means limitations. The hardening reality, experience. So as the child grows, the world begins to teach the foot its true identity. Through contact with stones, bits of glass and the cold ground, the foot loses its soft, rounded shape. Okay. So what happens? The bare foot, as it walks or as it gets exposed to the outside world, okay, it experiences or it comes in contact with the harsh surroundings, the glass, the stones, the rough earth, okay, and all this gives a very harsh, a very bad experience to the tender foot, okay. So what naturally happens? Now the tender foot cannot go out, I mean now it cannot go out without protection. Now it cannot go out bare feet. So now it has to restrict itself to shoes, okay. The shoes. Neruda uses the shoe as a metaphor for societal imprisonment. The foot is imprisoned in a leather cage, losing its connection to the earth. So the same way how we restrict the foot within the shoe, within the limits of the shoe. The same way so societal constraints, okay, limit us. So the shoe basically refers to societal constraints or societal imprisonment. The transformation, yeah, it becomes calloused, scarred and blind. What is calloused? Becoming hard, okay. As you grow, your feet also become hard, okay. The feet of an infant is soft when compared to the feet of an adult. The feet of an adult is calloused or hard, okay. So it becomes calloused, scarred and blind. It loses its beauty and its dream of flying, settling into the mechanical rhythm of walking. The long toil, adulthood. The foot spends decades performing its duty without praise or rest. It walks through fields, mines and markets. It becomes a member of a team, the body, doing the heavy lifting while the person's eyes see the world and the tongue speaks. The foot is the silent, hard-working laborer of the human anatomy. Basically trying to say that we are all like this only, eventually, okay. We'll all go, we all go with the flow, we all go with the pack. And we do not become, how do you say, the very integral members of the society. We just work, okay. Just like how the feet in the human body continues to work without getting any credit, we also grow up and start working, okay, and our work is never credited. The return to ignorance, death. Eventually the journey ends when the person dies and the foot is buried. It finds a strange kind of liberation, finality. In the darkness of the grave, the foot no longer knows it is a foot. Okay, so cycle completed. Hence the cycle completes. It ceases to be a prisoner of the shoe. In death, it returns to the same state of unawareness it had as a child, though it no longer dreams of being a butterfly or an apple. So when the infant was just born, the feet dreamt of being a butterfly or an apple. The feet had no limitations. There was no shoe holding it. In the same way, as the person dies, the feet again, it's bare feet, okay, and the feet is descending underground. This time again it has no limitations, but sadly the feet cannot dream like it did, okay, some time ago. Yeah, the next chapter, chapter 9. I believe that books will never disappear. Yeah, in his famous essay Interview, Jorge Luis Borges argues that books are the most astounding of human inventions because they are an extension of our imagination and memory rather than just our bodies, the extension of the mind. Borges compares the book to other human inventions. The microscope and telescope are extensions of our sight. The telephone is an extension of our voice. The plow and sword are extensions of our arms. It's PLOUGH. The Plow and sword are extensions of our arms. The book, however, is an extension of our memory and imagination. Okay. So what is he basically trying to say? That the only way our imagination or our thought is being projected is in the form of books. So why books are irreplaceable? Unlike other tools that serve purely functional purposes, the book contains the sacred element of human thought. Borges believes that as long as humans have a need to dream and remember the past, books will exist. To him, a book is not just a physical object, paper and ink. It is a relationship between a writer and a reader that comes alive every time it is opened. The concept of the sacred. Borges suggests that we treat books with a level of reverence as in respect, okay, respecting something. Level of reverence that we don't apply to other objects. He argues that even if technology changes, the function of the book, that is to preserve the human spirit, cannot be replaced by anything more efficient. 4. A defense against technology. Writing at a time when mass media like television and radio was rising. So apparently at the time when this interview was taken, TV and radio were very popular. And still Borges argues that books will still stand the test of time. Okay. So he says Borges remained unfazed. He argued that oral tradition and visual media are different experiences, but the depth of reflection provided by reading is unique to the written word. Okay. Chapter 10, the poem, Heaven If You Are Not Here on Earth. In his celebrated poem, Heaven If You Are Not Here on Earth, the great Kannada poet Kuvempu, K.V. Puttappa, challenges the traditional religious idea of a distant afterlife heaven. So we are all, irrespective of our religions, told that heaven exists in the afterlife. It is a place where you go to after you die. Okay. So Kuvempu, Rashtrakavi Kuvempu makes us think otherwise. He tells us why not ponder an idea of having a heaven here on earth? Because when you close your eyes and think of heaven, you are basically thinking of the good things in nature that already exist. Can you think of a heaven can you at least think of something that you have not seen? The image that you get of heaven is basically the elements that you've seen in earth, all combined together. So basically Kuvempu is trying to say that heaven exists nowhere else but on earth itself. Okay. Yeah. He argues that heaven is not a location in the sky, but a state of mind and a way of seeing the beauty of the world around us. So the rejection of a distant heaven. Kuvempu begins by stating that if heaven does not exist right here on this earth, it cannot exist anywhere else. He dismisses the idea of gods and nymphs. Nymphs are basically angels, celestial beings. Gods and nymphs living in a celestial realm, suggesting that these are merely human imaginations. Nature is divinity. The poet finds the divine in the physical beauty of the natural world. He points to the roaring stream and the gentle sunlight, the lush greenery of the forests, the harvested fields and the moonlit nights. To Kuvempu, these are not just scenery, they are the actual manifestations of heaven. So when you take a moment and you admire the nature around you, the scenery around you, you see an element of heaven in it. Okay. So this is basically what Kuvempu is trying to say. When you take your time and you observe the roaring stream or the gentle sunlight, the lush greenery of the forests, okay, or the moonlit nights, this is where you find a piece of heaven. Okay. So heaven exists nowhere else but on earth itself. Yeah, the role of the poet. Kuvempu believes that it is the poet, Kavi, who creates heaven on earth. By drinking the nectar of nature's beauty and translating it into song or poetry, the poet helps others see the magic in the mundane. Mundane means something that you see regularly. Okay. So heaven is a state of being. The poem suggests that if we can appreciate the splendor of a sunset or the richness of the earth, we are already in heaven. We do not need to wait for death to find peace or beauty. We only need to open our eyes to the heaven that surrounds us every day. Okay, so here again, Kuvempu is trying to say that it is the poet through his poems, through his written literary works, that he creates magic. magic in what is usually perceived as something ordinary. Okay, so this poem itself is the best example. Okay, now the sunset or the lush greenery, things that we see every day, we do not appreciate them, but when we read this poem we realize the magic in nature. So that is exactly what the poet does. Okay, he tries to highlight the things that we see every day, things that we take for granted. Okay, and through that he creates the heaven on earth. This is exactly what the poet is trying to say. Moving on. Chapter 11, Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye. This is a travelogue basically. Okay, so a travelogue is basically travel writing. You're traveling somewhere and you're writing your experiences, first-hand experience. So here the writer highlights first-hand experience of two countries, Japan and Brazil. Okay, towards your left you can see Japan, towards your right you can see Brazil. In his travelogue, Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye, George Mikes uses his characteristic wit and gentle irony to observe the cultural quirks of these two distinct nations. He focuses less on landmarks and more on the social codes that define the people. Okay, first country that he highlights is Japan. So the art of social grace, the culture of bowing. Mikes describes bowing as a complicated hierarchy. It is not just a greeting, it is a measure of status. The same way how Indians greet with a namaste, the Japanese people greet with a gentle bow. Okay. He notes that the Japanese have an uncanny ability to judge the exact depth and duration of a bow required for each person. He humorously points out that even on train platforms, people bow to one another with rhythmic precision, turning a simple gesture into a complex national ceremony. The etiquette of eating soup. So after highlighting on the culture of bowing, he talks about the etiquette of eating soup. Okay, even when you're slurping or eating soup, there is a kind of etiquette or manner you should follow in Japan. Okay. In a reversal of Western manners, Mikes highlights that eating soup in Japan is a noisy affair. While Westerners are taught to eat quietly, the Japanese believe that slurping soup is a sign of appreciation and enjoyment. To eat silently would be a sign of poor taste or a lack of enthusiasm for the meal. So if you make noise when you're drinking soup, it's considered a good cultural etiquette in Japan. The burden of courtesy. Courtesy in Japan is described as both beautiful and relentless. Mikes observes that the Japanese are super courteous, often to a degree that feels exhausting to a foreigner. This politeness acts as a protective shield or mask, ensuring that social harmony is never broken, even if it means hiding one's true feelings or frustrations. Next, Brazil, the rhythm of chaos. The traffic culture, in stark contrast to the disciplined rows of Japanese citizens, Mikes finds Brazilian traffic to be an expression of the nation's soul, spontaneous and chaotic. So the people there do not follow rules as such. Okay, there is so much chaos in the Brazilian roads, is what the writer is saying. So the jeitinho. Drivers in Brazil don't see traffic laws as rigid rules, but rather as suggestions. The philosophy of the road. He notes that the act of driving is treated like a competitive sport or a dance. There is a certain warmth even in the chaos. Drivers are aggressive, yet somehow carefree, prioritizing getting to their destination with flair rather than following a lane. So basically the people in Japan, they would keep following traffic rules as a secondary. Okay. To Mikes, the traffic is a perfect metaphor for a country that prefers the excitement of the movement over the boredom of order. Chapter 12, the voter. So this picture basically summarizes the entire story of the voter. In The Voter, Chinua Achebe provides a satirical and sharp look at the corruption and moral dilemmas inherent in post-colonial African politics, specifically focusing on how the democratic process is manipulated. Okay, this is relatable because a lot of things that are happening in this story are relatable even in the Indian political context. Okay. The protagonist, Rufus or Roof Okeke. So he's the protagonist, the main character in the story, Rufus Okeke. Roof is a clever, charismatic young man who serves as the election campaign manager for the Honorable Marcus Ebe, a minister in the current government. Roof is highly skilled at enlightening the villagers of Umuofia. So where is he staying? Where does he reside? He resides in Umuofia, okay? On why they should vote for Marcus. Marcus Ebe is their candidate, okay? He's also a minister, so they vote for Marcus Ebe. On why they should vote for Marcus, usually through a combination of empty promises and small bribes. The politician Marcus Ebe, the next important character in the story. Marcus Ebe was once a simple school teacher, but has become incredibly wealthy and powerful through his political position. He has built a grand mansion, ironically called Umuofia Mansions, okay? And just for that small thing, the people of Umuofia are highly indebted. Marcus Ebe was a simple school teacher, okay? So he had humble beginnings, but now he has built a very big mansion, okay? And people obviously will start cribbing. They will start complaining, okay, where is the money going to? Okay, obviously he's spending that on building his own mansion. So what did Marcus Ebe do to shut their mouths? He named his mansion Umuofia Mansion. Okay, so now the people of Umuofia are very happy. Oh, he did not forget us. He named his big house after our village. So now the people are happy. So these small things are enough to make the people of Umuofia highly indebted to their leader. Okay, and provides gifts to the village like a local slaughterhouse to secure their royalty. The shift in the village. The villagers, once naive, have become cynical. Okay, earlier they were gullible. You could easily convince them for empty promises. You could lie to them and they would still vote for you. But now they realize the power of the vote. Okay, now they know that they can bargain for their vote. So what do? They start asking for bribes. They realize that while Marcus has grown rich, they have remained poor. Consequently, they no longer give their votes for free. Okay, they now demand shillings. Shilling is a currency. Shillings and gifts in exchange for their support. Viewing the election as a time to extract some of the wealth Marcus has accumulated. The moral conflict. The climax occurs when Roof is visited by the opposition party. So we have two parties here, PAP and POP. POP is the opposition party. Umuofia, however, votes for PAP and their candidate Marcus Ebe. He has like complete support there. So opposition cannot make much of a change. But what do the opposition do? They visit Marcus Ebe's house. Okay, I'm sorry, Rufus Okeke's house. When Rufus is visited by the opposition party, the POP, they offer him £5, a massive sum, to vote for their candidate Maduka. So Maduka is the opposition candidate. He is contesting against Marcus Ebe. The oath. To ensure his loyalty, they make Roof swear on the E, a powerful traditional deity. So just like in India, they also have deities and gods, okay, that they greatly worship and adore. So they ask Rufus to place his hand on the idol, the E, and promise or swear to vote for Maduka. So now he believes in the power of the deity, the E. So if he lies to them and votes for Marcus Ebe, he knows that the E or the deity will curse him. So now he's in a fix, he's in a dilemma. The powerful traditional deity, the dilemma. Roof is a loyal servant to Marcus, but he is also a greedy man who fears the supernatural power of the oath. The resolution, a literal split. On election day, Roof enters the voting booth paralyzed by his double dealing. To satisfy both his loyalty to Marcus and his fear of the oath, he tears his ballot paper. Okay, here we have voting machines. Okay, over there it's ballot paper. So you write the name or you choose the candidate on paper, you fold the paper and you put it in the box. What does Rufus do? He tears the paper, and in one paper he writes Maduka's name, and the other paper he writes Marcus Ebe's name, and both he puts on the ballot paper and in the ballot box. He tears his ballot paper in half. He drops one half into the box of Maduka, fulfilling the oath, and the other half for Marcus. He walks out with a clear conscience, believing he has technically voted for both. Key themes: political corruption, the transformation of democracy into a marketplace where votes are bought and sold. Traditional versus modern, the clash between modern political systems and traditional beliefs. Okay, we see that the PAP party, they bank on the traditional beliefs. Cynicism, the loss of idealism in the community as they realize politics is a game of greed. The big idea, Achebe uses roof to show how individuals navigate a broken system, highlighting that in a world where everything is for sale, integrity becomes impossible. Moving on, chapter 13, where there is a wheel. P. Sainath's Where There Is a Wheel is a powerful piece of reportage that documents a social revolution in the Pudukkottai district of Tamil Nadu. Okay, so Pudukkottai district made headlines around 2 to 3 decades ago. Why? Because most of the women there achieved 100% female literacy, and moreover, most of the women in the district of Pudukkottai learned to cycle. Okay, so this was a big revolution some 3 decades ago. It explores how the humble bicycle became a tool for radical change, particularly for rural women. The core movement. In one of India's poorest districts, over 100,000 rural women, many of them neo-literates. Neo-literate as in people who just got literacy. Okay, they could not attend school in their younger days, so later on they studied. Okay, so those are neo-literate people. So they took up cycling as a social movement. This wasn't just about transport. It was a deliberate act of defiance against patriarchal constraints. What are patriarchal constraints? Basically men ruling the society, men setting up the rules, okay, restricting women. Okay, so this is patriarchal constraint. So the impact of mobility. The story highlights that for these women, the bicycle represents 3 things: independence, freedom, and mobility. Economic gains. Women no longer had to wait for infrequent buses or rely on male relatives to transport their goods. That is agriculture produce, stones from quarries to markets. Time efficiency. Cycling reduced the time spent on chores like fetching water or taking children to school, allowing more time for leisure or earning. So earlier, if all of this work had to be done barefoot, or if this work had to be relied on men to be done, now thanks to cycling or thanks to women knowing how to cycle, they could do all this work efficiently and they could save a lot of time as well. Social status. It broke the fetters of a male-dominated society. Even when men made dirty remarks, the women ignored them, asserting their right to move freely. Key figures and catalysts. So this is very important. Who were the key people? So Sheila Rani Chungat. It was all this idea, okay, the idea of pushing or the idea of enforcing this cycle literacy among the women of Pudukkottai. Sheila Rani Chungat's brainchild. The former district collector who pioneered the idea in 1991, she pushed banks to provide loans so women could buy bicycles, integrating mobility into the literacy drive. Arivoli Iyakkam, again another very important name is Arivoli Iyakkam, light of knowledge. The literacy movement that gave the cycling drive social sanction and organized training camps. The gents cycle. Due to a shortage of ladies cycle, many women bought gents cycles. They actually preferred them because the additional horizontal bar allowed them to seat a child on the front. Moving on, chapter 14, the poem, The Water. The Water by Challapalli Swaruparani is a poignant, politically charged poem that uses water as a witness and a metaphor for the history of the caste system and social injustice in India. Instead of seeing water as a neutral, life-giving element, the poet reveals it as a divider that carries the memories of centuries of oppression. Okay, as they say, he who controls water controls the land or controls a particular land. So water has so much power. Okay, so in India, even water is associated with caste discrimination. Okay, and how? That is exactly what this poem is throwing light on. Water as a social map. The poem begins by asserting that water is not blind. It knows the ground's low-lying nature. This is a double entendre. Literally, water flows to the lowest point. Metaphorically, water knows who is at the bottom of the social hierarchy, the Panchamas or Dalits. Here, a fifth caste is introduced, that is Panchamas. They are considered to be even more inferior to the untouchables or Shudras. So, they are the ones who suffer the most in villages. So, it is a witness to the untouchable being denied a drink while the upper caste person pours it from a height to avoid pollution. Second, the site of conflict, the village well. The well is depicted not as a source of life, but as a battleground. The humiliation. The poet describes the humiliation of the pot and the shame of the Dalit woman waiting for hours for a drop of water. Okay. The violence. It references the Karamchedu massacre, 1985, where Dalits were attacked by dominant castes for protesting the pollution of their drinking water. So the key figure was Karamchedu Suvartama. She tried to stop some higher caste people from bathing the buffaloes in the water which they used to consume. Okay, so this became a very big protest for protesting the pollution of their drinking water. The water here is stained with blood and tears, transforming from a clear liquid into a record of atrocity. The paradox of purity. The poem highlights the hypocrisy of the caste system. Water is used by the upper castes to purify themselves after coming into contact with a Dalit. Yet that same water is denied to the Dalit to quench their little thirst. The poet notes that while a pariah cannot touch the water, a beast like a buffalo is allowed to wallow in it freely. Okay, which is quite ironic and sad. Transition to a commodity. The poem shifts from the village well to the global market. The mineral water era. The struggle has evolved. What was once a fight for human rights at a local well is now a multinational commodity. So this multinational commodity is sold in bottles across supermarkets for money. I mean, you get it in return for money. Water is now trapped in a plastic bottle sold for profit, while the poor still walk miles for a bucket of muddy water. This highlights the intersection of caste and capitalism. Conclusion, the angry water. The poem ends with a warning. Water is not just a victim or a witness. It is a force. Whether it is a tsunami that swallows cities or a drought that kills crops, water eventually humbles all hierarchies. It is a multinational market commodity, but it is also a primal power that can submerge the very world that tries to chain it. Yeah, with that we complete chapters 7 to 14. So all the best for your exams. Hope your preparations are underway. So we'll come with more such videos. The slides will be accessible in the WhatsApp group. Okay, so all the best for your exams. Thank you.